Peace and blessings. This is the Minister of Information for the Universal Negro Improvement Association African Communities League and also President of the Baltimore Division 106 BARCA-CLARKE. We want to start off this lesson and it's going to be entitled The Introduction to Marcus Garvey. So let's get into it. Marcus Garvey and the UNIA in 10 items. Number 1, Marcus Garvey was the world's greatest organizer, as he was able to organize more than 12 million Africans worldwide. Now I want you to think about that because it's hard to organize black people. Marcus Garvey teaches us that we must be patient because black people are uneducated. So we got to be patient when trying to teach them. So you can imagine organizing 12 million worldwide. Number 2, productivity, to produce. Marcus Garvey understood the intimate relationship between the means of production and the character of the people. He recognized that consuming their products would not rescue us from subordination. Ultimate freedom and independence is founded on production, upon a creation of employment, upon a creation of labor and the creation of products for our own consumption. The power of nations and people are producing people, not consuming people. You cannot consume yourself into equality. You cannot consume yourself into power. Those nations who depend on consumption will see as they consume the product of others and do not produce themselves, they will be consumed by others. And I think that's very important that we have to produce our own. Economic self-reliance, number 3. And as you can see, we had grocery stores, restaurants, a printing house, a mart industry, a black dolls factory, the Booker T. Washington University, and the Phyllis Wheatley Hotel. We had real estate with offices, the UNIA office, the BSLA office, the Black Star Steamship Corporation with the 3 ships, the Frederick Douglass Yarmouth, the Shadyside, and the Canoa. And people are always asking, where's Marcus Garvey getting all of this money to pay for these buildings and these ships? Being a great organizer, understanding economics, and our own people, believing in our philosophy, investing in our businesses, black people putting up the money to be self-sufficient. Number 4, advocacy of hard work. Beneath the splendor usually associated with the name Marcus Garvey, beneath his genius for organizing, beneath the oratorical eloquence for which he was legendary, his elocution and his speaking, Mr. Garvey is a notorious advocate of hard work, an advocate of the singleness of purpose, and the advocate of self-discipline. The leader must strive to master his shortcomings, he says. The race must survive for excellence. The greatest men and women in the world burn the midnight lamp, Garvey states eloquently. As other people were willing to sacrifice their time and even their lives to Christianize our race, we must exercise patience and time to civilize our people. And again, he's talking about being patient, civilizing our people. We're uneducated. We need a lot of education, and he's understood that. But just the hard work that he put forth. And when he mentions the midnight oil, he's talking about staying up late at night reading and working and burning that oil to keep the lamps going during the time in the early 1900s. Number 5, the Negro World. The Negro World newspaper was the largest international weekly publication with a subscription of over 500,000. It was so successful that the British Empire outright banned the Negro World newspaper. It was single-handedly responsible for the education of African people worldwide, as its as it had Black history, arts, culture, and women's pages. And there, Marcus Garvey had women's pages as he's uplifting the Black woman. It's something that we're real proud to uplift Black women in our organization and government. The flag, motivated to denounce the song. And imagine if there was a song. Every race has a flag but the coon. So to denounce that song, Garvey built an economic empire and established a Declaration of Rights, resulting in the creation of a government so as to be secure the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all Africans worldwide. Subsequently, the government of the UNIA-ACL was founded. The colors of the Black race are red, black, and green. Universal Anthem. After establishing the economic empire, establishing the government of the UNIA, the red, black, and green, the anthem of government of the UNIA was also established. And the anthem to our flag is the Ethiopian national anthem. Number 8, the African Legion. Amongst the auxiliary components of the UNIA were the Universal African Legion, a paramilitary group, the African Black Cross Nurses, the African Black Cross Society, the Universal African Motor Corps, the Black Eagle Flying Corps, and the Juvenile Division, which was the Youth Corps. So a lot of people want to know about auxiliary, but the African Legion is a military, not a security like the NOI, and we have that back with us now. History. Number 9. Marcus Garvey used history to inspire and educate and not to dwell in it. He didn't want us to dwell in our history, but we needed to know it and educate each other. And last but not least, number 10, race pride. Garvey went about the task of converting the disabilities of race into a positive tool of liberation with a thorough aggressiveness. Mr. Garvey built a mass organization, government, that went beyond mere civil rights agitation and protest and based itself upon a definitive, well thought out program that will lead to the total emancipation of a race from foreign domination. As per Mr. Garvey, the world has made being black a crime. Instead of making it a crime, I hope to make it a virtue. Nor was Mr. Garvey's idea of racial pride a matter of envy towards other race. Rather, he advocated self-discipline as the basis of pride and was severely critical of complainers. So there you have it, the 10 Marcus Garvey and the 10 items which we like to push in the UNIA. And now I want to go over an introduction to Marcus Garvey, as we call it. Biography of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Early years. Born to Marcus Garvey Sr. and Sarah Jane Richards, Marcus Mosiah Garvey Jr. was the youngest of 11 children. Only he and his sister Indiana lived into adulthood. He was born on August 17, 1887, in St. Ann's Bay, in St. Ann's Parish in Jamaica. Garvey's background distinguished him from the typical peasant in that his father possessed a library among whose volumes Garvey developed an early taste of reading. Garvey's father, a skilled tradesman, was a stonemason and trace his lineage to the Maroons, the group of Africans who fought and escaped from slavery and established free communities in the mountainous interiors of Jamaica. At the age of 14, by which time he had already become an apprentice to a local printer, Garvey left school. 2 years later, August 1903, after a hurricane hit Jamaica, wiping out all the crops in Garvey's area, he moved to Kingston, Jamaica, the city capital, where he obtained work through a maternal uncle. By the time young Garvey was 17, he had already committed himself to uplifting the race. By 18, Garvey was a foreman printer. In fact, he was the youngest foreman printer in Kingston at a time when many foremen were still being imported from Great Britain and Canada. Travels around the world. Marcus Messiah Garvey continued for the next year or so to wander through Latin America, going to such places as Panama, the Honduras, Nicaragua, the British Honduras, Venezuela, and the Ecuador, where West Indian workers had migrated in large numbers to search for work. He observed universal degrading of the black race, worked intimately to finance his travels, started another paper in Panama, and agitated among black workers. A black worker in Panama at the time remembers meeting Garvey around 1912 as he addressed the predominantly black Cullen Federal Labor Union. From Central America, Garvey returned briefly to Jamaica, and by the autumn of 1912, he was in England, where his only surviving sister, Indiana, was working as a governess. In England, he indulged his love of public speaking at Hyde Park Speaker's Corner, was a regular visitor of the House of Commons, and worked for the African Times and Orient Review, the most Pan-African journal of the day. He found the time to visit Scotland, Ireland, France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal, Australia, Hungary, and Germany. He also attended lectures in law at the Birkbeck College of the University of London. He left England on June 17, 1914. Sojourn in England, that means a brief stay. Garvey's first sojourn in England was of great importance to his career. The workings of the British democracy made a lasting impression on him, and, like later generations of visitors from the colonized world to the metropolis, he noted the contrast to the autocracy which the very same colonizers maintained in their tropical dependencies. England gave him an opportunity, too, to enhance his already wide knowledge of the world's sufferings of black people. In the pages of the African Times and Orient Review, there appeared regularly articles by which such leading black figures as Booker T. Washington, Edward Wilmot Blyden, John Edward Bruce, William Ferris, just to name a few. Garvey also came into contact with black seamen and students whose sufferings he observed, as with the many people of color who visited the offices of the journal. And the fact that the journal combined a Pan-African outlook with wide coverage of Middle and Far Eastern nationalist struggles, and indeed all the anti-colonial struggles, contributed further to Garvey's growth and influenced his future outlook. However, it was Garvey's research at the British Museum that would solidify his zeal to uplift the African race. Garvey read and studied the history of Egypt and concluded that there is a self-reliant, independent economic system. A people or a nation would never control its destiny. This is how ancient Kemet became the world's first global economy. Garvey would later use the image of the pharaoh Khafre on the Sphinx as the logo of the Negro World newspaper. Jamaica. Garvey arrived back in Jamaica on July 15, 1914. his head bristling with ideas of making a living and founding a racial uplift movement. To secure the latter, he formed 5 days after his arrival the Universal Negro Improvement and Conservation Association and African Communities Imperial League. The title bore testimony to the enlarged vision brought about by his travels and the fear, which he never relinquished, that the weak races were doomed to slavery and possible extinction. In this regard, he wrote, "For the last 10 years, I have given my time to the study of the condition of the Negro, here, there, and everywhere, and I've come to realize that he is still the object of degradation and the pity of the world over, in the sense that he has no status, socially, nationally, or commercially, with a modicum of exception in the United States of America."